Welcome to the Bronx. For Lisette, it's a crazy place to raise a family. A hard place to hold on to your man.
You see this ring? You know what that makes me? His wife. You know what that makes you? His hoe.
And a tough place to go after your dreams.
Ma, listen, I got a job. Yeah, I got my own cubicle and everything. Mr. Price, I wanted to talk to you about the marketing campaign.
The marketing campaign?
No.
No, what do you mean no?
Columbia Pictures invites you on an emotional journey to the heart of a family.
If I hit you with this, is that gonna stop you from stealing? I don't know.
From writer-director Darnell Martin comes a remarkable debut film.
Kiss Papi, bye-bye. You tell me right now if that's your kid.
No.
No? No!
What do you mean no? I didn't mean to hurt you, Lisette.
All you care about is yourself.
Everything I did in my life was for you, and you know it.
You're just gonna walk away?
Try a little tenderness. Give her all your love forever.
Was he better than me?
I like it like that.
Hey, folks, we're here yet again with another unfinished business television deep dive. I am your host, Jeffrey Galashaw, and with me, as always, is Andre Joseph of AJ Epics.
Sesame Mucho.
Yes, you could just hear the flavor, the music, the community. This week on Deep Dive, we are talking about a little film called I Like It Like That came out in 1994. It is written and directed by Darnell Martin, one of the first African-American females to direct a studio film, and get a wide release. And what can I say about this movie? It is such a gem that more people need to discover. It is available currently on Tubi. It basically takes a look at a Hispanic family, Lizette and Chino, and their neighborhood. And Chino ends up getting arrested after trying to replace Lizette's stereo during a blackout. And that starts a whole set of problems with their finances. Lizette doesn't have the money to bail him out of jail. And there's always this constant suspicion that he cheated on her during their marriage. And she goes out and gets a job. And then when her boss drives her home, rumors start that she's having an affair with this man. And then he ends up claiming a baby that may or may not be his just so he could get bailed out and confront her. And now he's kind of stuck in his situation. It's just a domestic drama. But the beautiful thing about this movie is not only that it stays realistic, but it also stays comedic. And for me, this was a movie, I used to read all the movie magazines, Premiere, Entertainment Weekly, Movie Line, and I remember a lot of them doing articles on this movie. And so I was instantly interested because, again, it was an African-American female making a studio film. And what fascinated me the most was that she was making a film, based around the people in the neighborhood she lived in the Bronx. And, it was, I guess for me, it was strange, a Black female writing a movie about basically mostly a Hispanic family. But that's the beauty of this film. Even though it centers on one family, this is a movie of like culture and neighborhoods and community. And this is like way before In the Heights. Tried to dramatize it. And now there are so many recognizable character actors that you've seen in other films. At the time it was Lauren Valence's debut role. But really the biggest names in this movie are like Griffin Dunn and Rita Moreno, Andre, tell me, how did you hear about or discover this stuff or watch it for the first time?
It's funny how I first discovered this movie because it actually was shown to me in high school. in my film class. My teacher, Mr. Scrow at Curtis High School, showed us particularly the part when Lauren Velez is like getting bothered by her son and I guess the sister, well, the transvestite sister, and then she locks herself in the bathroom and then she turns on the salsa music and she's like spinning with the mop. We're always being shown that scene because of how that kind of married music and pictures and just how she was trying to get away from all that tension with her family. Like she just was trying to distract herself. So I always remember that particular scene every time that I think about this film. And this was really the first time recently that I watched it all the way from start to finish. Didn't know about the affair angles or, like I didn't know Rio Moreno was in it. And there was even like areas of the Bronx that a friend of ours, Sylvia, who unfortunately couldn't join us today, was shot in her neighborhood. So I was very familiar with some of those spots that you saw, like Laura Velez and John Sada's characters walking around. So, this was definitely like, I think that film definitely captured the Bronx in the 1990s really well. That attitude, that flair, the music, just everything about like New York City in that time. It's got its flaws. It's a little bit over the top at times, I think, especially with the kids and the son, like you're trying to like get him to like join a local gang, but other than that, I mean, I see where it's very unconventional for the period.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. This was one of those movies I unfortunately didn't get a chance to see it in theaters. I remember the advertisements though, and commercials, and it was one of those movies that as soon as it came out on home video, I not only saw it, but I went and bought, a copy of it because I love this movie so much. And for a while there, I think I was 16 when this came out. It was like my movie that I would play when I was going to bed. That was how much I really enjoyed this film. And, again, especially, I was just so happy because I know Darnell Martin was mentored by Spike Lee because she was the second assistant director on Do the Right Thing. And this film kind of works in a similar fashion as Do the Right Thing because it's a movie about a neighborhood, more or less, and the characters in it, even though it takes place over time rather than just one day. I remember watching it repeatedly and really watching it for the show for the first time. It's like I noticed so much more watching it in the years that have passed. I mean, you have Lisa Vidal, who became a lovely character actress. I remember when I first saw this, just having an instant crush on her. Vincent Laresca, who people might notice more for supporting roles and background, and he was part of Leonardo DiCaprio's infamous Pussy Posse. But you also might recognize him from Romeo and Juliet. He was one of the Capulet boys. You have John Cena, of course, who I thought would have gone on to be a leading man after this film, because he was that good looking in this movie, and he could play tough but also play tender.
Every time I hear his name, I'm thinking he's a singer.
That you're thinking, because there is a singer who does have that same name. As long as I hope you're not thinking of John Cicada.
I think it's John Cicada. I always think, and I always mix those up.
Totally different look. I just don't see him coming out in like a brightly colored suit and singing love songs to the audience.
I do. He has that Latin lover look.
Maybe in Selena he had that look. Here he has more of that street look. Like he looks like, oh yes, I love you, baby, but he'll beat the shit out of any dude who tries to hit on you. And that is something also about this film. This is, obviously it's the 90s. It's not written this way, but it might just be more the character. The misogyny that most of the male characters have, especially like you said, Lizette's father when it comes to her transvestite or trans brother. What's the character's name? Alexis. Played very convincingly by Jesse Borrego of Fame. I think this is one of his best roles that he ever played. And that was one of the things I appreciate about the film over the years because I did not know the Bronx very well. I grew up in Brooklyn, we're usually opposites. So this is like the opening up that whole borough to me. And, and not only that, it was really the first time, I guess, really seeing a trans character played in a humanistic way, not just total stereotype. Um, and I think this is the first time I actually noticed that their father is West Indian in the film. I never noticed that before. There's just so much to love. Like even just the opening shot where it goes through the neighborhood and you see all the different things that are happening, and then the epic lovemaking of Chino and Lizette and the kids banging on the door with there's even a sign that says, "Don't even think about with a belt attached." And it's just so many human and realistic moments, at least, in its portrayal, that is why I think a lot of people enjoy this film and what makes it so real to me. And by the end, it's like this is a film where you kind of want to see or hang out more with the characters and see what happens, because it kind of ends still with them in the middle of a fight.
Yeah.
But then it gives you a post-credit sequence showing, oh, they got back together. And I mean, to me, the only, I guess, after school special moment of the film is again when their son is trying to, provide money in the house and he runs in with the local gang, and then his father gets all really tough with him.
Pulls his pants, starts belting him.
Yeah, it's like, that's what it just feels like. But I like that kind of, then they strip him of all the expenses and leave him in the hall, and he doesn't know what to do. Kind of like exposing him to being a child again.
Yeah.
And I thought that was symbolic. Again, a little over the top, but it works, And it's moments like that I appreciate. We think there's going to be like this romantic thing between her and Griffin Dunn, who of course have that meet cute at first, opposing. Then they find they need each other. Then they kind of have like a friendship relationship like Grace of My Heart, except here it's consummated. And again, a more stereotypical comedic sex scene, And there's just such a wealth of character and good writing here. And I'm just like, and I know that Darnell Martin had problems with the studio making this film. It mainly came, she didn't like them. She felt exploited by them, always bringing up her race when, advertising the film, instead of it just letting it be a film, directed by a woman. Why it's got to be specifically an African-American woman. And they also did not like her title, because originally it was called The Blackout. And they wanted it to sound more like a romantic comedy because Four Weddings and a Funeral was a hit at that time. So that's where they came up with, I like it like that, since it is the song that opens the film. Also, but if you listen, there's also a song called Blackout when you watch the movie. So it works. Look, it's the director's vision, so I'm all for the original title, but I can understand how if it had been called The Blackout, even though that is the act that starts everything off here, it would have seemed more like a thriller when you heard the timing, but not when you saw the poster. Oh, I get what they're trying to say. And I like that is a little more family. Well, it's not a family film, but a little more friendlier title that makes you think of this as maybe a romantic comedy. But I guess again, she wanted to make it more about culture and community more than, oh, look at these romantic squabbles Lizette keeps finding herself in. I mean, if you really wanted to call it Blackout, you could also say, since this takes place in a Spanish community, there's very rarely any, black characters in it,
None, not that I remember. Except when she goes to the modeling agency.
Exactly. With Tukey Smith, who at the time, was known as Robert De Niro's girlfriend.
Yep.
And, but, I like how they portray Manhattan, as this kind of almost separate entity that they enter. But then when it's in the Bronx, it's like, oh, we're comfortable, we're homey. And, I like the guys on the corner all, talking smack. and they got bigger gossips than any women in the neighborhood, and kind of like Chino's mother thinking, not only is she better than Lizette and her family, but that her son, who hasn't really done anything, is so much better than Lizette and her family. And I kind of wonder, was that like a kind of also a little dig at colorism and in the Spanish community? I'm trying to look at my facts.
When I see like the little daughter in the movie, for a second I thought it was like a young Tessa Thompson, but it's not.
No. I wish like Christina Vidal was in this movie with her sister Lisa Vidal.
Yeah, she was working in that period. She could have easily been in a song.
Yeah, but she was like in Life with Mikey. She wasn't like, oh, I have to.
She was doing her own thing.
Exactly. And you don't necessarily want to write your sister's coattail, especially if this is her big acting debut, a bigger role. And oh man, it's just like it's a colorful film. It's full of like it's a film. I think Spanish and people of color know this film, and that's who. Again, this is more the audience for this film. But it's also a film I think they should take note of, especially when writing an ensemble film. You can still have lead characters, but you also have to have rich supporting characters, even if they're just the small little paints in the background, but they help shape the overall picture. And I feel like this is definitely an example showing that. And, pre-gentrification of neighborhoods, I can't say enough good things about this movie. I just wish it was more seen as a classic, because it was interesting. You said they showed it in high school. I mean, how racy some of the scenes were. I was like, they showed this to you in high school? Wow.
Well, they didn't show us everything. They only just showed us that one scene.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say, that's very progressive.
Yeah, we didn't see the sex scenes or, the thing with Griffin Dunn, none of that. So, or even the kid getting whipped outside the ice cream truck.
Oh, that they could have showed. That wasn't too bad, maybe language-wise. But this is a film, I feel, especially when you're dealing with maybe film students of a certain culture or of a certain financial background, you should show this film because, again, write what you know, and you can still make a story out of it. And it doesn't have to be, a Boys in the Hood depression movie, or, some big crime movie. Sometimes you can just write about the things you know and the people around you and tell a story, and it still have a big or maximum impact. And
yeah, no, you could definitely tell that Darnell Martin put her heart and soul into that film. The way those shots are composed, the performances are realistic. The kid performances are definitely top notch compared to, other movies that you might watch that are similar from that time. And you got this amazing cast that you have. I mean, Lauren Velez went on to do New York Undercover right after this. And Maria Moreno, was just becoming seen as like an icon of, Latin American actors in this country. I mean, she had West Side Story, she had all this stuff, but, we didn't like put her at that pedestal yet. So this was like a different type of picture for, kind of an interesting time for cinema. And like you said, it's just the marketing really screwed this whole thing up. Yes, you probably could have sold the movie on the song itself if you're going with the title. But I mean, I could tell you, even in my time as a kid, I barely saw any advertisements for this. For Weddings and a Funeral, and later with My Big Fat Greek Wedding, you saw advertisements all over the place, knowing those films were like must see, must talked about. This was like completely under the radar, and it's a shame because she had talent, and yet the next couple of things she did was mostly for television and, a couple of things here and there, but nothing to that degree, that same level of passion she had in that first film.
Yeah, because I think her following feature film projects show she has a love of music, because her next film was Prison Song in 2001 with Q-Tip, Mary J. Blige. Basically, every major role was played by either a rapper or musician. And, it had little musical interludes. And then she made Cadillac Records, which was her last feature film with Beyonce and Adrian Brody. That one was like that one was a good studio film music biofilm, if you will. But again, it was more polished, but it was not. It didn't feel as strong and sincere as this film.
Yes.
And I know she works a lot in television, and I'm happy for that. But I guess you just really wish she could have followed this up with something, just on that same level, just as good. Something more. I don't want to say the streets necessarily, but community. Like sort of like Spike Lee movies. Her mentor.
Do you think if she was starting out now and if she had like Ava DuVernay's career where Oprah would give her the push and, she has that big film, you think she would be a bigger deal now than she was back then?
I think she would be a bigger deal now than she was. Yes, definitely, because I feel like there's more avenues for support than she had back then.
I agree.
I feel like, again, we see sometimes a lot, like with minority filmmakers, they get praised or even overpraised. And, you watch the movie and it's like, it's okay, but it's not as good as most critics are hyping this movie up to be. And it's more because it's sort of like liberal guilt almost for some of these films. And I feel like watching this film, it would have been noted again, African-American director, big studio film, female, and again, the whole thing of writing for a culture she's not necessarily born into, but she grew up around. So I feel like that. And again, it appeals to like all people of color. So I think it would have been big like that. I don't know if it would have been a Sundance hit, but again, I don't really think Sundance is as strong as it used to be.
It's definitely not.
Yeah, like when it comes to buzz. But maybe if it had played to audiences, let's say even at the New York Film Festival, I think, it would have made a little more noise. And, she would have gotten, I think, a little more interest, because again, it's not like she's like living in the gutter or anything.
No.
It's like, but I would have liked to see more of her work or, have a little bit more opportunity, and I feel like she's kind of like Julie Dash, a kind of an unsung hero as an African-American female filmmaker, or just an African-American filmmaker in general. Just like, I can't remember her name, the woman who directed Just Another Girl on the IRT. And
yeah, I don't remember her name.
Yeah, see, that was another film that kind of came and went. And like, as you were saying in one of our other episodes, I remember that heavily being advertised at King's Plaza. That showed Blackwood. Because, again, it was filmed partially in my neighborhood. So that was another reason why I really enjoyed that film. Because I was like, I know where they're filming that at the time as a kid. And that filled me with so much joy. And this is another thing, like we talked about in previous episodes and even interviews. There's a certain joy seeing the places you live, people you might know represented, or even seeing yourself, a character like yourself, represented on the big screen. And unfortunately for, African Americans and people of color, that was a rarity. I like that now we're getting more of a chance than we did in 1994, because it was like, it was either going to be a Spike Lee movie, maybe a John Singleton. He was just starting, to make some noise, or it was going to be an independent, film, or it was going to be one of those films that a studio put out that was for a niche audience of, people of color, like Mo Money, something like that. But, I just feel like this is truly like one of those, I don't know, would you consider this a hidden gem, or would you just call it a gem? And
I think it's a hidden gem. I think it's a movie that maybe, especially if you are learning to do films and, you're starting in the track of like a Spike Lee or Julie Dash, there's like those rare gems you have to find in order to see like how far we've come. And that movie, I think, really encapsulated something that, you would see now and think, it's just like any other film. But back then, that was different. That was a different perspective we were not getting. That wasn't a New Jack City or Boys in the Hood, like you said. This was just like a simple story, just dealing with people and people in their neighborhood and their culture.
True. And I feel like people of a certain age who are people of color in New York know about this film. but I feel like they're the only people who might really know. This is something like if I taught a film course or a filmmaking course, I would show my students, we can show the classics, but I'm just like, that's what you strive to be someday. Let's show something that you could maybe possibly make yourself, as a first film. Again, showing things, little artistic touches that seem mundane in the film, but once you realize what it's really saying, that it becomes clear and more powerful to you. It's like the power in just the little details rather than maybe that big camera move that other films do, or that still shot. It's like this has more of the little intricate details like that. I guess Ridley Scott strives for when he makes movies. That the little details that maybe people with keen eyes more notice and are impressed by. But would you recommend this stuff?
Yeah, I think for historical purposes, yes.
Not for entertainment value?
It's entertaining. It's just my tastes are so all over the place. It really goes from film to film.
Okay. I highly recommend this film because I just think it's truly like a treasure chest of a movie. I think it's unfortunate that Lauren Velez didn't get more leading roles after this, at least in movies. She's always, usually somewhere on television, and I'm
And
happy for
Dexter.
that.
Mhm.
I really remember her most. I remember New York Undercover, but Dexter.
Yeah.
That it was where I really felt like she got her time to shine on that show. Again, you got Jesse Borrego, John Cita Sakata, who some of you might remember from, what was it, Chicago PD? Was the show he was off for a few years?
I think it was Chicago or yeah, what was I think it was or for Third Watch, one of those shows. And he was in Bad Boys too.
Yep. And of course, he was also infamously in, but you'll probably won't recognize him, 12 Monkeys, with Bruce Willis. And I don't know. After this, did he go into Selena right after this?
Selena was 97, so yeah, it was a few years
so
after.
a few years. But I remember always, whenever I would see him, I'd just be happy he got more work.
Mhm.
Because he's Chino. As we keep asking actors, what roles do you normally get recognized for in the streets? I hate to say it. If I saw him, I know your name's John Cena, but you're always gonna be, Chino to me.
You just say John Cena.
Oh, sorry, John Cena. So you got that staccato. I'm thinking all these stuff. Next, I'm gonna be like John Watts. But I just, like I said, I have so much love for this movie, and like I said, anybody watching it, stop right. Well, you watched most of the episode, so but I say stop right now. Go watch it. It's on Tubi. Luckily, it has a DVD release and I believe a Blu-ray. So definitely do that so you can see the vivid color, the clearest picture possible. But I would say, like I said, if I was making a homegrown film course, this would definitely be one of the films that I would show. And I feel like now if they made it, the studio would be like telling her, you have to put Jennifer Lopez in it. In the lead.
Yeah, they would want bigger stars in there.
Yeah, it would be like, what? Oh, God. It would be like Shotgun Wedding. Jennifer Lopez, somewhere they'd want Cheech in there. I'm like, you realize they're not the same Spanish nationality, right? So, but a studio would be like, whatever. Plan B, Brad Pitt. You need to be like, what? Producing movies like this. But I'm happy Griffin Dunn was like in the film and has always been a supporter of independent movies and appeared in this. Because I think he was probably one of the names that probably helped to get funding for the movie. And
I could see that.
so, do you have any last words to say about I Like It Like That?
No.
Okay. So that ends our business this week. But as you know, we always have unfinished business. And until then, we will see you soon and listen to John Cicada CDs. I mean,